What's up, folks? David Soto Jr. here, and this is the David Soto Jr. podcast. What's up, folks? Welcome to episode 14 of the David Soto Jr. podcast. I'm your host, David Soto Jr., and it is a decent spring day here in Boulder. I'm thinking I'm going to hang out. I don't think I've been waiting for spring to come so I can hang out here in the mountains. I actually applied for a job up in Keystone. I don't know if I'm ready to work. I kind of don't want to work or even start thinking about a job until summer's gone. I want to do a lot of fishing. I want to do a lot of camping, but who knows? Who knows what I'm going to do? I could start selling 1 million books. I sell 1 million books. I'm done. I'm checking out. I don't know if I'll sell 1 million books. I mean, I would like to, but it's a long process. It's not going to start happening by the end of the summer, I don't think. But, sell 1 million books. Speaking of selling 1 million books, what I want to talk about is I call it the worst advice I ever got. The worst advice I ever got. And so if you don't know, I used to be this big kind of ancestral health, I wanted to be guru. I wanted to be an ancestral health guru. Had a website, wrote books, was taking pictures of food. I got kind of good at taking pictures of food. I even had a couple pieces of barnwood, and I would plate my food on that, and then use a reflector, which is one of the only pieces of photography equipment besides a camera. The only pieces of photography equipment I really use, and that's new. Everything else has been just a camera, fixed lens, and maybe a tripod. But I started using this reflector to bounce the light, natural light, and I would take these cool pictures of food. In fact, somebody interviewed me for a podcast, kind of based on, he goes, let's talk about this food, these pictures of food. But I take pictures of food every now and then, but they're not placed as well because they're in cafes and stuff. But I wanted to be an expert, a subject matter expert. I wanted people to hire me to give talks, to be their personal coach and trainer and all this. So I started writing books. And one time I got on Twitter and I said to somebody who wrote a book, a very, very influential book, one that I've purchased a couple times probably for different people. And she interacted with me on Twitter and she said, well, whatever you do, here's the bad advice. I'm just going to go ahead and tell it. Whatever you do, don't write it for yourself. She said, don't write it for yourself. I'm like, okay, that's good to know. Because you think you're writing these books for people, right? You want them to buy it. You write books so that other people can buy it and it will help other people. Jesus Christ, you know how many times I keep hearing that? I mean, I used to say that. And now that I realize that this is bad advice or a bad train of thought, I hear how many other people I hear. I just want to help people. I got a shout out to Liz Gilbert for saying in her book, Big Magic, please, 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 whatever you do, don't write, don't create to help people. We don't want your fucking help, is basically what she's saying. And so for me, as an author who wrote books specifically for the reason to help people with who are overweight or who are suffering from inflammatory diseases, autoimmune diseases, to help people, specifically Latinas, to help them lose their panza. Fucking idiot. I wrote a book specifically for Latinas to help them lose weight. You know how many books, you know how many copies of those I sold? I couldn't even give those fuckers away. I dedicated many hours, many days, many weeks writing that book, formatting it, getting a cover, etc., to have nobody buy it. I have a book called Pass Your PT Test, which I wrote for my last year in the Air Force. I wanted to do something to contribute, and I wrote Pass Your PT Test. Again, I wrote something for somebody else. I gotta be honest, that is actually it's the best. I'm not gonna say it's doing well, because it's not doing well, but it's my best seller nowadays as the word gets out and people start finding it. But also, I wrote a weight loss book, Stop Working Out. That one doesn't have, my first book was The Complete Guide to Primitive Eating, and that has the most sales, probably the most reviews, definitely, because it was my first book I ever wrote, and I published a book, and people were like supportive, and they bought it, and they thought it was great that I did something, and so they showed me support. I probably have a lot of people who bought it and didn't read it, they just did it to support me. So those books don't sell. They just don't sell because I wrote them for somebody else. Because I took this fucking person's advice and I wrote books that weren't for me. Whatever you do, just keep in mind you're not writing the book for yourself. So I have a bunch of books out there that nobody wants to buy. Again, like Pass Your PT Test, it's pretty good, and it's doing the best out of all of them. Out of all my previous life as a health and wellness guy. Now, the person who told me this, hers is the number one. Did I want to say her? Hers is the number one bestseller. Hers is a great book, and it is maybe up there as far as ancestral health books go. I probably would still recommend it. If I knew somebody who wanted to get into the paleo diet and wanted help, I would recommend this book. Number one book to recommend. I think. It's a great book. And she sells a lot of them. And she must make a shit ton of money because she constantly shows pictures of her vacations that she takes, her nails that she has done. And of course, as she's showing off her nails, she's holding keys to her Audi. So hey, good for her, right? She's making a lot of money. She's buying nice cars and nice things and everything a person wants when they start out in a business, in case this business is an author. But here's the thing. I haven't paid attention or followed her on social media in years now. So it's been years. It was years ago. And the reason I don't follow her on social media anymore is because she's got fucking annoying. She got super annoying because she's a whiny, unhappy person. Now I talk about when you're on social media, you should be true to yourself. Be true. Truth always wins. The truth always comes out, etc., etc. Integrity first. Truth is the best thing that you can have if you're trying. Transparency, if you're trying to build a following, truth is key. But also, people don't want to hear you bitch all of the fucking time. Even a little bit. People don't want to hear you bitch a little bit. But if all you do is complain of how piss poor your life is, yet you're taking pictures of your fingernails that you had done, or from your vacation at the beach, all this, your new Lululemon fucking pants or bra or sport. If you're doing all this, yet you're complaining, being, can I say it, bitchy? say bitchy? Being bitchy because of how fucked up your life is. Nobody wants to hear that shit. So let's say, for example, you're doing better than me, but all you do is complain about how shitty your life is. I don't want to hear that shit. And so my point is that this person is complaining about how fucked up everything is, right? Oh, I can't believe, if you're going to do this, then I don't want to hear it, la la la, and do do do, and la la la. Just, I guess I'm singing now, do do do. But she wasn't happy. She wasn't happy. She wrote a book, not for her, but for other people. It sold a gazillion copies. She made plenty of money. Unhappy. I think the reason she is unhappy is she put all that time and effort and work into something that she didn't want to do. Sometimes it raises people's, let's say, and I've put work into something that I didn't want to do, hoping it would make me a gazillion dollars, and it didn't. I lost my train of thought. But let's say it did make me $1 million. And then I'm like, well, man, I have all this money now. Let me raise my standard of living. Let me get a nice apartment. Let me get a nice car. Let me get my nails done. And I will get my nails done. I used to get my pedicure on. Someone made a comment before. A really nasty comment about how nice my feet look. It was something, she was so snobby. Something like, yeah, your feet look better than mine. Are you gay? Can you believe that shit? Anyways. I would have to continue that standard of living, right? I would have to continue to produce stuff I really don't want to produce to make the money that I like to make so I can buy the shit that I now buy because I make this money. That's not sustainable. You can't do something that you really don't 100% like to make money forever. Maybe some people can do it for 30 years and then they're done. People don't work in factories for 30 years and then retire and say, you know what? I miss it, man. I'm coming back. I'm coming back to the factory. For people like me, for people with entrepreneurial spirit, they can't. They can't work on something they don't like. And maybe they can force their way through it, and maybe they'll make a lot of money. But if they raise their standard of living to meet that income that they brought in, they're going to have to do it again. And that's going to make them miserable. That's what I think happened to this person. The person who told me, write a book for other people, don't write it for yourself, was a miserable person. In my opinion, based on what I've witnessed on her social media and on her. I remember, people still do periscopes. She used to do periscopes. And she would bitch, man. She had a podcast. She would bitch. I got tired. I just couldn't stand any of it. She's obviously an unhappy person, and it comes out in all her forms of social media. And I had to stop. And I realized I wrote all those books for other people, and they're completely worthless. Nobody wants them. Nobody's buying them. Nobody asked me to write a book about this or that. Uh, a guy I know named Dan Miller says, anytime 3 people ask him for something, he creates that product and sells it. Nobody's asked me for shit. Nobody's asked me for any of those books that I wrote. I wrote them anyways. And I'm grateful for the experience I had writing those books because I know how to self-publish now and I can do it pretty well. So I'm absolutely grateful for them. But I also feel like it was a lot of work and a waste of time to do that. Now, here's the thing. One of the best authors in the world, by the name of Stephen King, he wrote On Writing, and I love that book, and I listened to it over and over again. I listened to Liz Gilbert's Get Big Magic over and over again, and I listened to Stephen King's On Writing over and over again. And one of the many good pieces of advice that Stephen King gives is one that I think is bad. And he says, write for your ideal writer. Now, he also says, write first draft with the door closed. Write for yourself. And then the second draft, write for your audience, right? So I don't know, maybe there's a little bit of contradiction. Maybe he's not, I don't know, because he says both, right? But he says you have an ideal writer, and it's worked for him. Jesus Christ, everything he writes turns to gold in a movie, right? Successful author for 30, 40 years now. Maybe what he says is true. But then again, his ideal reader is his wife. Now, I think that's different. You know, they talk about know your audience. If there's any other human out there in the world that you're going to know any better than any of them else, it was going to be your spouse. It's going to be your wife. It's going to be your soulmate. I think that's an exception to the rule. Like if my ideal reader if I have an ideal reader in mind and they're cute, voluptuous, brown-skinned girls, single moms, looking to make one more baby, that's my ideal reader. I'm kidding, but if that's my ideal reader, how do I know anything about them? How do I know, my ideal readers are 14-year-old girls who like vampires. What the fuck do I know about 14-year-old girls that like vampires? I don't know anything except me. And that's who I write for. I write for me. I remember what that person told me a long time ago, that bad piece of advice, and then what one of the most greatest popular famous authors has said is an important piece of being a successful author. I have to ignore that. I have to ignore that advice. I have to say, I think you're wrong. Okay, here's the thing. I take it back. Maybe he's not wrong, but maybe his ideal reader is not your typical ideal reader for an author out there. It's his wife, the love of his life. 40 years, stood by him through all his shit, his drinking and his drugs and his accident and all that stuff. That's a hell of an ideal reader. And it's not every author can have an ideal reader it's someone that they're that connected with. So I don't know if Stephen King is saying Stephen King is wrong, but I am thinking that his example of an ideal reader is a very rare one for an author to have. I mean, the only other person I would know better than me would be the person that I've been married to for 30, 40 years. So I write for me, and it's fantastic. And granted, my PT test book sells more than the books that I write for me, but that's right now. That's only right now. I put so much passion and enthusiasm in the work that I do right now that it is good. It is good stuff. And the people who do read it like it, for the most part. I may convince people, sometimes I convince people to read, buy my books and read it, and it's not their genre. They don't like that type of material, and so they don't like it. Somebody called my book, what did she say it was? Cheesy. Did she say cheesy? And that, to me, I took that as not her thing. Magical realism and love and all that stuff must not be your thing. Here's another thing. I think I can take the criticism a little bit better because I did it for me. I wrote it. I write these books for me. And when I read them, I'm reading my next book now. Read through. Second read through. First read through I just finished. So I read the book and I got to the ending and I was excited. I read a line in my book and I was like, both hands, double fist pump. I'm like, yes, let's do this. This is my character's name is Pierre. I'm like, fucking Pierre, let's do it. And I had that response, and this wasn't a surprise. It wasn't like I was reading somebody else's book. This was my book. I wrote that shit. Those were my words. I wrote it. And when I read it to myself again, I got excited. And I read that ending like I was reading somebody else's book. I read the last chapter like I was reading somebody else's book. And I couldn't wait to get to the ending and see what happens, even though I knew what happened. I'm writing these books for me. The experience, the pleasure I get out of them. Do I want to sell a gazillion books? Yes. Do I want to make it into a movie? Yes. But if none of that happens, I gotta be honest in saying that I will not feel like I wasted my time writing these books. Not like I have with the other ones that I wrote for somebody else. Thanks to that fucking bad advice. Anyways, folks, that's all I have for this episode. I want to thank you for tuning in. You can find me on Instagram at David E. Soto Jr. Oh, I almost did it again. I almost added the .com. I've been doing that. Twitter at David E. Soto Jr. Instagram at David E. Soto Jr. Also, my website where I post a lot of my writings. I'm submitting a lot of stuff to some contests and things. I'm trying to get well known and spread the word. I know there are people out there who will like my stuff. I just got to find them. Anyways, folks, I appreciate you tuning in, and I will talk to you later.